Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Court Reporters Board. I have a few housekeeping matters to share before I call the meeting to order, beginning with a reminder to everyone that this meeting is being recorded and webcast. Today's meeting will run in accordance with the Open Meeting Act as required by law. I will ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice board members accessing their laptops, phones, or other devices during the meeting. They are using the devices solely to access the board meeting materials that are in electronic format. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item, and you wish to speak on that item, please raise your hand and you will be recognized. To better assist the board in accurately transcribing the minutes of the meeting, members of the public who make a comment may be asked to disclose their name and association. However, disclosure of that information is not required by law and is purely voluntary. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. If you agree with a prior speaker, please do not repeat the comments, but rather state that you agree with comments already made. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask that Ms. Bruning please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Gotti.
Present.
Thank you, Ms. Dunkeys.
Present.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Brewer.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Dodgenam.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Manayan.
Present.
Thank you. Quorum reached.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning. So we'll start with agenda item 1, public comment for items not on the agenda. Before we invite speakers to begin, I would ask individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may come before the board for his decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they could provide information to the board members that is outside of the record, which is in violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. Therefore, such discussion could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged. The board can receive comments regarding the board's process in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances where the decision is still pending. Board staff is available to speak with you about any pending matter. In addition, the board would ask that the public address the board as a whole and not individual board members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members and is not a discussion between board members and the public. The only action board members can take is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on the topic. No other action can be taken on the item at this meeting. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. With that, is there anyone wishing to offer public comment?
Instructions will be on the screen shortly. If you're logged in and would like to participate, click the question mark inside of the square, typically lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment in the text field, and in the Ask section, make sure it goes to all panelists before clicking the Send button. If you are calling in from a phone and would like to participate, you can press *3 to raise your hand. So now I'm going to call on each individual. I'll set my timer to 3 minutes and I'll give you a 30-second warning. So we'll start off with Easter Chan. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone.
Good morning to the board. My name is Esther Chun, CSR number 13595. I'm a full-time official court reporter at the San Mateo County Superior Court and member of the CEIU Local 521. I appear before you today to request to be placed on the agenda at a future meeting to discuss the board's interpretation and application of Government Code Section 69954 subsection B. This involves 7 San Mateo County official court reporters who received complaint numbers 223061 through
Mute the mic.
223067 in December of
please mute the mic.
2022.
I'm sorry, commenter, we cannot address any complaints at this time regarding anything, really. And so the request that we take a look and possibly put on the agenda, that particular code section is taken, but no further comment can be added to that commentary. Solid, you may go ahead and reopen the mic.
And just to confirm, legal, reopen the mic for Chun, correct? The speaker?
Yes, the commenter may proceed as long as she maintains the rules of Bagley Keene.
Confirming. And let me, should I reset the timer? I got lost in.
That's fine.
Okay, thanks. Chun, you have been unmuted. And Esther Chun, I've just sent a request to unmute your microphone.
Thanks for sending us.
Try one more time. I suggest decreasing the volume of the speaker on your device that sometimes feeds into your microphone and causes an echoing. So we can give that a try. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone, Esther Chun.
Yeah, there you go. How about that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In replies letter dated June of 2023, each of the 7 reporters advised the
Again,
board.
mute the mic. Commenter, I do apologize, but again, your comment regarding which statute you would like to have on a future agenda has been taken and will be considered, but no further information can be provided regarding any complaints at this time. The board nor I can hear those matters. That is to be addressed specifically with the enforcement. And once a final decision is made, we can then address it as a board, if indeed disciplinary action is supported. Any further comment at this time, this will be your final warning. If you provide further commentary on complaints, then you will no longer be able to speak on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. For your consideration, I would just like to send all of our supporting documents in this matter. In closing, on behalf of the affected official reporters, I implore the board to please place this on the earliest board agenda as possible. And we're also happy to discuss this matter offline with the board. Thank you.
Executive Officer Fenner?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you are aware, but for the information for the board as well as yourself, you do know that the information would go to enforcement only and not to the board until after it is addressed through the proper Administrative Procedure Act processes, and that any documentation, et cetera, would not be appropriate unless it is strictly filtered or otherwise appropriate for the board to hear. And there is no offline communication to the board. All action must be taken in front of the public at meetings like this when appropriate, pursuant to Bagley Keene, so that all of the people may participate in the people's business.
Thank you for that reminder.
Thank you.
Moderator, next individual, Diane Pisano. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone. And Diane, I believe you are now unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My name is Diane Pisano, CSR 6102. I'm a member of SEIU Local 521 and one of the 7 official named reporters in the complaint. I'm also requesting our matter be placed on a future
Again,
agenda.
mute the mic,
I'd
Solid.
also like to note
This is for all comments. They cannot include anything regarding any complaints before the board staff. Any further comments to that extent will terminate the ability for us to continue to pursue comments on this matter, and any further commentary will be ceased. We do have Government Code Section 1125.6. 1126.5. I do apologize. To conduct an orderly meeting as well as one that is in compliance not only with the Bagley-Keene Act, but also with the Administrative Procedures Act. Any further comment on any complaints or any witnesses or anyone involved can violate Administrative Procedure Act as well as due process rights provided by the California and United States Constitution. Any further comments at this time on those matters will be ceased.
Moderator, would you like me to continue with Pisano?
As long as the commenter complies with the Bagley-Keene and the Administrative Procedure Act, they may resume the comment.
I've sent a request to unmute the microphone. This is the moderator. I'll send a second request to unmute the microphone. Diane Pisano, from your end, just click the unmute me button. This is the moderator. Last attempt to unmute your microphone. I just sent a request to unmute your microphone, Diane Pisano, and then we'll move on to the next individual. Okay, we'll move on to Sydney Trabanini, and I apologize if I mispronounce any of the last names here. I'm going to find your microphone so I can send and unmute. Okay, no microphone can be found. They may have logged out. So next individual identified as Stacy Gaskill. Just sent a request to unmute your microphone, Stacy.
She can't hear me. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Stacy. Yes.
Oh, hi. I don't want to violate your rules, so I guess I cannot comment on what was discussed. I just support the position. Thank you.
Okay, next individual identified as Virginia Boterini, and I again apologize if I mispronounce any last names here. I do not see Virginia Boterini. If I'm missing you, if you can please raise your hand. The hand raise feature is the bottom center of your WebEx screen and has a little outline of a hand. Otherwise, we will move forward with Belle Viviane. I'm going to send a request to mute your microphone. I'll do a second attempt. I just sent a request. Just click the unmute me prompt once it appears. Last attempt here. I sent a request to mute your microphone. You are unmuted.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, yay. Thank God. Okay. Hello. I'm not sure if this is appropriate. It's about my experience with you, Proctor, and just the California CSR testing just testing in general. May I read
At
that?
this time, that would not be on the agenda. So what you could do is ask for the board to place it on the next agenda, and that will be considered to be placed.
Okay. So would you consider that next time? That will
And for
that
clarity of the
that
record.
means that's another quarter to wait.
You can submit any questions to staff in the interim, but the board cannot hear or discuss any matters that are not on the agenda. Notice to the entire public is something that the board would consider. And so I do apologize for the purpose of the topic, for the purpose of any future agenda item. What is the topic?
It is the unprofessional and highly stressful situation that happens when you take the test on you, Proctor.
Okay.
I actually
That's enough. Thank you. So that will be reviewed by both the president and by the executive officer for review to be placed on a future agenda.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. One last individual identified as Tara O'Connor. I'm going to send a request to mute your microphone. Just click the unmute me prompt once this appears on your screen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Tara Kanya, and I'm a West Valley student in qualifiers. I came today in hopes the board would consider adopting the NCRA's no proctor testing experience for the CSR and or an in-person option next year, as the problems with ProctorU, including but not limited to lateness, computer privacy concerns, and Proctor inconsistency hinder the smooth test-taking process we all hope to have. If the board wishes...
That is sufficient enough for the board president and the executive officer to determine its placement on the agenda, on a future agenda.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. No additional requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A? Oh, sorry, I just got one last request come in. Priscilla, I'm going to send a request to mute your microphone.
Me, CCRA, supporter student chair. I agree to add the ProctorU issues on the agenda.
Moderator, no further requests. Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all of our commenters for sharing information with the board. We'll take that under advisement. So with that, we will move to our next agenda item, approval of the meeting minutes. That is our September 1 meeting minutes. Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes from board members? Seeing none, I will take a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second that motion.
Great. So motion from Ms. Brewer and a second was that from Mr. Dodgenham?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the minutes?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions will be on the screen shortly. If you would like to participate and you're logged in, press the question mark inside a square, type comment, and send it to all panelists. If you're calling in from a phone, press *3 to raise your virtual hand. No request. Madam Chair, would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bruning, would you please call the roll on to vote on this item?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Dodgenham?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkeys?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Gade?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning. Turning to our next agenda item, we have agenda item 3, Department of Consumer Affairs update. I would like to welcome Karina Moreno from the Department of Consumer Affairs, who will be presenting the board with an update.
Good morning. My name is Karina Moreno of the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I thank you for the opportunity to join you today. First is the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency update. On November 28th, Governor Newsom appointed Tamika Moss as Secretary of the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency. Secretary Moss has been the founder and CEO of All Homes since 2019 and previously served as the CEO of Hamilton Families from 2017 to 2019. Secretary Moss was Chief of Staff in Oakland Mayor's Office from 2015 to 2017, Executive Director of Hope SF in the San Francisco Mayor's Office from 2013 to 2015, and is the Board President of the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. We extend a warm welcome to Secretary Moss and look forward to working with her. Next is the DEI update. On November 7th, University of Massachusetts consultant Christopher Veal provided a virtual training entitled DEI Dialogue for leaders to 173 DCA managers, supervisors, and leaders. Veal's training covered psychological safety and how it affects these conversations, as well as interactive discussions about the challenges that leaders are facing. Participants were given a training survey, and the feedback was extremely positive. The DEI Steering Committee will hold its quarterly meeting on December 15th, 2023. The committee will review a draft of DEI Internet webpage that is currently being developed, elect a 2024 chairperson and vice chairperson, and to discuss DEI training as it remains a committee priority. Once operational, the DEI Internet page will provide all DCA employees information and resources, including DEI hiring principles, which will serve as a guide for those involved in the hiring process. The DEI Steering Committee would like to continue to learn about the showcase, the DEI activities of DCA boards and bureaus. If your board has DEI efforts to share, please send them to DCA Board and Bureau Relations. DCA continues to support DCA boards and bureaus in expanding culturally competent communications and promote the importance of meeting the needs of all California consumers, licensees, and applicants. The latest issue of DCA Consumer Connection magazine includes articles with information important to the consumers, including a feature cover story translated into 4 languages to further reach of this information. The magazine is available on DCA's homepage. Printed copies of the magazine are also available. If you would like copies, please email consumerconnection at dca.ca.gov. Next is the military portal launch. On November 29th, the department successfully launched a new process and portal in support of service members and their families, following new federal and state laws passed this year. Known as the Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration Portal, this new DCA online portal will allow boards and bureaus to accept online requests from military service members and their spouses who currently hold a valid license in good standing in another state, district, or territory to register their practice in California within the same profession or vocation if they relocate to California because of military orders. This online portal will allow DCA to properly receive, track, and review requests to ensure compliance with federal and state law. In addition, DCA's military resource webpage and board and bureau licensing webpages have been updated with federal professional license portability and state registration information. It is vital that DCA provides service members and their families coming to California under military orders with the highest level of customer service and assistance. DCA continues to strongly encourage all boards and bureaus to streamline internal processes, use single points of contact for military licensure requests, and process all military requests as quickly as possible. Developed and implemented completely by DCA staff, this was a huge accomplishment, and DCA is very proud of the talent and teamwork that made this portal a reality. Next is in-person meetings and Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. As a reminder, DCA boards and bureaus may conduct entirely remote public meetings without notice locations accessible to the public through December 31st, 2023, so long as the public is able to participate in the meeting remotely. Commencing on January 1st, 2024, 4 meeting options will be available pursuant to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Option 1, traditional single location option. This is a meeting where the majority of the members are gathered at one publicly noted and accessible location. No members are participating remotely, and there is no requirement to allow for remote public participation. Option 2 is traditional teleconference option. Board members are located at different publicly noticed and accessible locations, and they are connected via phone or WebEx. There is no requirement to allow remote public participation. Option 3, new teleconference option. A majority of board members are gathered at one publicly noticed and accessible location. The extra board members above a majority can participate remotely from private, non-public sites, and the meeting must allow for a remote public participation. And finally, option number 4, the new advisory body teleconference option. All members of an advisory body can participate remotely from private, non-public meeting sites. The meeting must have at least one publicly noticed and accessible location where at least one board bureau staff member is present and where the public can participate in the meeting. Additionally, the meeting must allow for remote public access. DCA encourages boards to work closely with the board councils to ensure compliance with the Open Meeting Act. Any concerns or questions, please let us know. Next is the required board member training reminder. As the end of the year quickly approaches, there are 2 DCA-wide mandatory trainings that if you haven't already completed, we will ask you to do so immediately. This includes the sexual harassment prevention training and the information security awareness. All DCA employees and appointees, including board and advisory council members, will need to complete the sexual harassment prevention training by December 31st, 2023. Additionally, board members with an assigned DCA email are required to complete the Information Security Awareness Fundamentals training. This training addresses your role in protecting DCA's data and information. Both the sexual harassment prevention training and the information security awareness training are available on the department's learning management system. If board members need assistance accessing LMS or additional information about any of these trainings, please contact Board and Bureau Relations. This month is also a perfect time to make sure that you have completed all your required board member trainings and submit your certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. Out of travel update, California's restricted states travel list has been eliminated and replaced with a new public awareness project that will consult with community leaders to promote California's values of acceptance and inclusion of the LGBTQ community across the country. Over the past years, several out-of-state trips requested by boards were not authorized because the travel was to the state on the restricted travel list. Now, out-of-state travel to all states is permitted if the trip is critical to the functions and needs of the board. Out-of-the-state travel requests must still follow the established process for review and approval by DCA agency and governor's office. For questions, please reach out to your executive officer or board and bureau relations. Next is the Our Promise State Employees Giving at Work campaign. In partnership with board members, DCA will continue its tradition of generosity and caring for our communities. This year's Our Promise Giving at Work campaign is underway and runs through December 31st, 2023. Leading our efforts this year are DCA's co-chairs Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, and Yvonne Durantes, Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. This annual campaign gives the state employees, including board members, an opportunity to support nonprofits through a one-time donation or payroll deduction. These contributions make a positive impact by providing vital resources to those experiencing poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, and offer support to causes such as veterans, animals, and the environment, and more. We hope you will join the state's campaign and contribute to a nonprofit or nonprofit of your choice. For additional information on how to give by December 31st, please contact Yvonne Durantes. Next is the State Employee Food Drive. The annual California State Employee Food Drive started this month and runs through January 8th, 2024. In our effort to support families in need, DCA has distributed collection boxes at the following Sacramento area locations: HQ1, HQ2, Bar, CSLB, and Evergreen. Employees and board members can drop off non-perishable items in the boxes for DCA to donate to a local food bank. Collection boxes will be available through January 8, 2024. For more information on how to make a difference as part of this year's food drive and other ways to participate, visit www.fooddrive.ca.gov. Lastly, in case you missed it, BBR sent out a 2023 fall newsletter, which was distributed to board presidents, vice presidents, and executive officers. The fall newsletter is also available online at the board member resources page on DCA's webpage. The BBR team would like to thank the board and the staff for their hard work and partnership over the past year. We look forward to 2024 and all the great work that lies ahead. Thank you for your continued service and for your protection of the consumers of California. I appreciate your time this morning and welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you. Do we need to take public comment on this item? No. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Ms. Moreno. With that, I think we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the report of the executive officer, agenda item 4. Ms. Fenner, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Dugade. I will start off my report with a review of the budget. If you want to look on page 28 of the board meeting materials, we have the expenditure projections for fiscal month 3 of the current fiscal year, which is 2023-24. They're pretty self-explanatory. Month 3 means we're really early on in the fiscal year, so not that it's not meaningful, but not a lot of expenditures have hit yet. So these are true projections. Can I answer any questions regarding the expenditure projection? Seeing none, moving on to page 29, you'll see our overall fund condition. What you can notice under the transfers and adjustments, it says revenues, transfers, and other adjustments. We are projecting transferring $100,000 to the TRF next fiscal year and $200,000 in each of the following 2 years. It's really a challenge to budget for TRF because we don't really have a pattern to how many claims or in what amount we're going to get in any given year. However, going down to the months in reserve, you'll see that budget year 26-27 is currently projected to be approaching 6 months. As you may or may not remember, when the board's operating reserves fall below 6 months, we are no longer able to make transfers to the TRF. Although these figures include very conservative estimates, the board may wish to consider exploring the possibility of a fee increase down the road. We are currently at $225 per year for a renewal. We are statutorily capped at $250. There's quite a bit of time that we would need in order to do the necessary studies to justify an increase. So it may be wise to start some of the background work. Are there any questions on the overall fund condition?
Just to say a reminder to our board members and public that the board, like all other DCA boards, is a special fund, and so Ms. Fenner, please jump in if you'd like. But with the current budget projections being rather dire broadly for the state, our board in particular is self-funded by fees, and so at this time we are sort of independent of that current projection.
Yeah, so when the overall state is in a deficit situation, because we are funded by license fees almost exclusively, we are a special fund, as the chair said. So while it doesn't make us immune, we're not at the top level for cuts, if that makes sense. Usually when things are cut across the board with the state, there is some that apply through the Department of Consumer Affairs, but we're not the first place that they're looking to cut because our revenue does come from the licensees. Any other questions or comments on the overall fund? In that case, then I will turn it over to Paula Bruning to update you on the transcript reimbursement fund.
Thank you, Ms. Fenner. So to date, for this fiscal year, which started July 1st, we have paid out over $37,000 in invoices for the pro bono program, which entails approximately 56 invoices. On the pro per side, we have paid out over $31,000 and provisionally approved nearly $12,000. So those are applications that were approved with estimates, and we are waiting invoices. I would be happy to answer any questions or concerns the board members may have.
If there are no questions, then I will just say thank you, Ms. Bruning, for all of your hard work on the TRF programs, and move on to the enforcement statistics. The most recent statistics for the current fiscal year start on page 31 and run through page 34. I would point out that the number of complaints is slightly higher than average, but it is early in the year, and with the addition of firm registration and oversight, it's not really an unexpected event to see that those numbers go up. Does anyone have any questions on the enforcement statistics? And seeing none, the results for our license exam begin on page 35 of the board agenda packet with the skills portion. And you will have noticed that the most recent stats are found on page 36. And so in the future, we are going to start to drop off some of the oldest historical information so that we can keep the stats to one page. The skills portion of the exam was open from November, the most recent one, sorry, was open from November 1 to November 22. We had a total of 141 total applications, of which 33 were voice writers. We had 120 actually take the exam, of which 94 were able to successfully submit exams for grading. 59 candidates scheduled for the last 5 days. That means those with technical issues were unable to retest, as you need 72 hours in advance in order to schedule a proctor. So of those 59 that waited to the last 5 days, 27 of them were first timers. And out of that first time pool, 10 qualified through the CVR, 6 through the RPR, and 11 through California Recognized Schools. We are currently working to have results mailed on December 28th, and I'm happy to answer any questions specific to the skills portion of the exam.
Maybe I missed it. You said 59 waited to the last 5 days. Were of those 59, how many were able to submit tests? I know you said that, or were all 59 unable to submit because they weren't able to get a proctor scheduled?
It was only those with technical issues, and I don't have that number. So if they had technical issues that normally would allow them a retest, they were out of time.
So 94 of the 120 that took the test, 94 submitted tests.
Correct.
Total.
Calling on people.
I have a question. My question is about this skills test, but also more broadly, I see that the number of first-time applicants is dramatically higher, is up dramatically, which is great news. Wanted to know, was that directly correlated to the opening up of the voice, of being able to do the voice testing, or why do we think that those numbers are up so dramatically, and do we think that will continue?
I think it is in large part due to opening up to voice writers, because it is a shorter program. The schools have embraced it, and there's a higher completion rate for that program. And so I think that coupled with the shortage, which normally spurs enrollment at schools, since it's kind of cyclical in nature, it's that dual combo that are driving that upward enrollment, and that trickles over for us then in the number of applicants. Mm-hmm. And based on the fact that anecdotally I've heard many of the schools have waiting lists to even enroll right now, I would expect our numbers for applicants for the test to continue to increase.
Wonderful, thank you.
Chair Chagati, you don't have to raise your hand. It's your meeting, hon.
I thought I would add myself to the stack. Thank you, Ms. Fenner. Along Mr. Dodgenam's comments, just want to applaud our board staff for the rollout of the voice writing, and just so excited to see that those, two starts to feel like a trend. And so really encouraged to see those numbers, going into the end of the year. And also appreciative of the additional breakdown, Ms. Fenner, of kind of why we saw those applications that didn't make it all the way to a submitted test. Was curious if you could share a little bit more about what kind of information test takers receive as far as like the timeline for how long they have in order to submit their testing requests in time for a proctor?
So the instructions are mailed out to them as soon as they are eligible to take the exam. I believe they arrive email. So they have them well in advance of the actual open testing date. As far as the scheduling the proctors, it says in the instructions that it takes 72 hours to schedule the proctor.
Thank you for that clarification. And you know, I appreciate. You know, I hope that we're. I think that we hopefully are really making a point to accommodate our test takers, but also, you know, given that we put out those instructions very clearly, hope that that's taken in stride. I'll pass it to Ms. Brewer.
Thank you, Chair Tagade. So by my quick subtraction, it looks like we have 26 of the 120 people who took the exam who were unable to submit and within the last 3 days, so they were not able to reschedule. Now, I do have a question about the not rescheduling. Are they able to request rescheduling if they're in the last 3 days, but it's just that it's so unlikely that they're going to get a proctor that it's futile? Or if they're within that 72-hour period, are they unable to even request?
There will not be a proctor available. They need 72 hours advance notice.
Okay, so this might be excessive hand-holding, but you know, I'd like, especially with our situation with trying to increase the number of licensees and doing everything that we can in many different areas to try to promote people taking the test, getting the skills, getting the training, taking the test, becoming licensed. I'm wondering if we ought to have an artificial cutoff for sign up and just reserve a week or whatever the appropriate time is so that people aren't even able to register so close in time that it's futile to be able to get a proctor. So that's my only input.
I will tell you, Board Member Brewer, that staff has really struggled with this, and we've talked about it because it would be, obviously, one of our solutions is to create an artificial deadline and then extend it. But then is it really a deadline if everybody knows that they're just going to be able to schedule at the last minute and get a retest? And where we struggle, I mean, staff definitely shares the same wish for candidates to complete and pass the exam. However, if we have candidates that can't read the instructions or abide by the instructions, are we in fact licensing a group of people who will not be able to get a transcript out on time, for instance? If they waited to the last second to get a transcript and then ran into technical errors, is the board planting the seed that you just say, well, I tried my best, give me an extension?
May I follow up? Thank you for that. And I think I'm sympathetic to that point of view, but I think I come down on the side of, and actually maybe not even calling it an artificial deadline, but instead have a certain period of time that people can actually take the test. And then there is a certain period of time that some people can retest if they were unable to submit, and not even allow anybody to schedule in that period of time that's allowed for retests. And So that's it. Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback on that. Perhaps close it 5 days early and reserve, and I think this is what Ms. Brewer said, basically, but reserve those last 5 days just for retesting for technical difficulties, but everybody else has to be tested. Actually, I'm backpedaling. As I say that, I tend to lean toward, I tend to think we need to be held to the standard. Licensees should be held to the standard of reading the directions and planning accordingly. So I take back my initial statement and think we should stick with what we have.
Is there board consensus? I mean, if you want us to change, you need to, I would need a direction from staff.
I'll just say that I can agree with that. I mean, I think people have to be responsible for their own actions, and I just hate to see people who are qualified to take the exam who aren't getting it submitted for grading. It's unfortunate, but I guess they're big people, so they've got to adjust.
I do think it would be appropriate to reach out to the trade associations that are giving CSR prep exam classes, seminars, and reiterate to them this issue so they could. I know we say it at every meeting. I know Ms. Fenner talks about this at every meeting, and that this is a problem. Don't wait to the last few days, but perhaps that is one thing we can do, is ask them to reiterate the same thing to those people in that class.
Happy to do that.
And I know, Ms. Fenner, you've outlined that the instructions are quite clear, but about the timing, but perhaps we can reevaluate kind of where those notices are going, and see if there's other places to highlight that information more clearly.
We will look at it.
Ms. Brewer?
Thank you. I'm wondering if we could add to that just the rough statistic that we've got 26 people who were eligible to take the test, and they couldn't submit because they did it so late. I mean, it just kind of drives it home.
Let me interrupt. There were 26 people who did not submit, but not all of them were at the last minute.
Oh, okay. Okay, I misunderstood. Thank you.
Were there any other questions or comments on the skills portion of the exam? Moving on to the written, the results for the two written portions of the license exam, the English and the professional practice, appear on pages 37 through 40. I don't know if anybody had questions on the written portions. I'm happy to answer them if you do. And seeing none, the final portion of my report is on our technology modernization efforts. So staff continues to meet daily with the development team to report progress and solve impediments. We're currently in the process of our first run of data conversion testing. That is the goal that we have, to get through all of the testing in order to do a full cutover with the real data in March. I will say that overall, the project is currently running on schedule, it's on budget, and it is matching the defined scope of the project. This portion of my report is never complete without a huge thank you to CRB staff for the countless hours devoted to assisting the developers understand our business processes, and also the additional time spent on testing the system. Do board members have any questions on the technology modernization portion?
Ms. Burr?
No questions, but just also very grateful for getting this done, for the extra work. I mean, this is long overdue and it's wonderful, not through any fault of the boards. And it's wonderful to see it coming together. And I thank you all, including Ms. Fenner, for your hard work in getting the funding going, getting the program going, everything to do it. It's going to be wonderful to have that completed.
Ms. Sunkis?
I too want to thank staff for all your efforts in getting this up and going. I've got I know you've been meeting daily. On top of everything else you're doing, you're meeting daily on this issue, and so thank you so much to Ms. Fenner and to everyone else.
Thanks for the appreciation, guys. If there are no other questions for me, that concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fenner. Is there any public comment on the executive officer report?
Madam Chair, this is legal, if I may.
Yes, Ms. Joffrey?
I do apologize. I was unable to mute my mic or start my video after when you asked if public comment was necessary after the DCA update. And the answer is it's always a good time for public comment. And so if we could take public comment on both the update as well as the EO report, please.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in, if you would like to participate, click the question mark inside of the square, typically bottom right corner of your WebEx screen, and type the word comment in the text field and send it to all panelists. If you called in, you can press *3 from your phone to raise your virtual hand, and we will call on you that way. And just a friendly reminder, public comments on the DCA update and the EO report. Do have a hand that's up from Priscilla. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone, and I'm going to set my timer to 3 minutes. And you are unmuted.
Hello, this is Priscilla Galtney, CCRA Support Our Students Chair. I appreciate and agree with Bruce's position about maybe having a week for those with technical issues. 26, our numbers are growing. 26 is a lot of applicants that could possibly be CSRs. And, you know, I question whether if it were in person, how many would have actually not submitted due to technical issues, if that's what this is. We don't have in person anymore. I'd like to see a little more flexibility with it. I get your position as well, but ProctorU has caused a lot of issues. Mentally can mess up a student's game, I guess. You know, when you have to wait for an hour, when you're ready, you warm up, you practice, and then you have to wait an hour to actually take the exam because ProctorU is just not great. So there's that issue. And then, yes, I know personally I'm working, my team and I are working on a prep course for this kind of the technical issue side of online testing, trying to mirror the CRB. And I would love to hear, I don't know if you track the kind of complaints that are arising or technical issues that are arising, for example, for these 26 applicants that didn't submit their exams. I'd love to hear those before we go live with our CSR prep course for this. Please reach out. I believe you have my contact info. I'd love to hear And I believe that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Fenner?
Moderator, next.
The staff, if I can just jump in, staff has let me know that of the 26 that did not submit their test, some of them just felt they failed it. It's not just for technical errors. And it's not just because it was at the end, but there still is it is a problem. There still are a significant number that are waiting and could have scheduled the week prior and had a full shot at it. Thank you.
Ms. Sunkis and Ms. Brewer, are you responding to this comment, or can we proceed with public comment?
Proceed with public comment. I'm sorry, I jumped in too soon.
Thank you, moderator. We can go back to public comment.
Moderator, calling user 5. I am going to send a request to mute your microphone and set my timer to 3 minutes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Anna Costa. I am a 44-year legal professional, and most of that in court reporting, and now a West Valley instructor. I have two things that I would like to discuss, one of them being the budget. And I have a question, who prepares the budget?
We have a budget analyst that works with us through the Department of Consumer Affairs budget office.
Okay, so is this person a CPA, an independent CPA, who can audits and verifies the figures?
No, it's not a CPA.
Okay. If we had any questions, do we submit them in writing to get further clarification about the numbers?
You can just reach out to me, Anna.
Okay. Thank you, Yvonne. With regard to the testing and tech issues, 59 students waited until the last few days. That is a problem. And I can understand the discussion that's been had before with the board, current and just earlier now. But, you know, one of the things that I read in one of the board's documents states that the board provides outreach to the public, to the consumers through social media. And I'm confused because it's rare to see any posts on the Court Reporters Board's Facebook page. Perhaps, I mean, the last one was on July 12th of this year about extreme heat, which was to overall consumers. I rarely ever see anything about court reporting. And I wondered if it wouldn't be helpful to post notices of upcoming exam dates with deadlines, upcoming meetings with a link to the agenda and the supportive documents. Let's see what else. And how soon that could be implemented, perhaps part of the board's goals for 2024 to have an increased presence, because the majority of court reporters and students actually are on Facebook. That would be a great platform. And if the board publishes stuff on their page, I will forward it and share it with groups. And so will others, I'm pretty sure. And I do have one question about when is the public going to receive the results of the Court Reporters Board 2023 Environmental Scan Stakeholders Survey?
The 3 minutes are up. I have muted the line.
I can check on that. We normally don't publish that as a separate standalone document, but if Ms. Costa wants to reach out to me, I can do some research and see if that's available.
I'll move on to next individual identified as Stacy Gaskill. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone. Request has been sent to Stacy. Set my timer to 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Stacy Gaskill, court reporter, official court reporter in San Mateo County Superior Court. I support Priscilla's comments regarding tracking technical issues with ProctorU. And I also support the idea of reserving 5 days for retests for students who deserve a retest because of technical issues with ProctorU. Thank you.
I'm going to just do a quick clarification that it seems like the public think that the technical issues are all related to ProctorU, and that is not correct. Some of them are internet bandwidth related that have nothing to do with ProctorU.
Moderator, next individual identified as Tara Okana. I'm going to send a request to unmute your microphone and set my timer to 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. This is Tara Okanya. I'm a student at West Valley College in qualifiers. I did speak earlier, and I just want to touch on Priscilla's comment as well. I have been gathering up ProctorU stories from CSR candidates about their problems, and if the board wishes, I can send them to you and compile them so you can have just a picture of what's going on. A lot of students can actually do exactly as everybody says, and the proctor can mess everything up. So I do have tons of stories from them, and I would be more than happy to send you for your convenience. Thank you.
This is the moderator. I do have a second request for comment from Stacy Gaskill. Madam Chair, how would you like to proceed?
We'll take the comment. Thank you.
Sorry, that was a yes. Take the comment?
Yes.
Thank you. Stacy, I will send a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I was only saying I support the idea of reserving 5 days for retest for students who deserve a retest because of technical issues with ProctorU. Thank you.
This is the moderator. No further requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Thank you, moderator. Yes.
One last request come in. Would you like me to take that?
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Calling user 5. And I believe that's a repeat request as well. Would you like to take that?
Yes, that'll be in order. Thank you.
Hi, hi, and can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. It's Sonica Hosta. I was muted somehow. I wanted to join in with Priscilla's and Tara's and Stacy's. The issues with technology have gone back to 2020, and especially with ProctorU most recently. 5 out of 5 of my students who took the exam recently had issues with Guardian browser and with ProctorU. There are a number of them. I will follow up with a letter to request that you go back to in person because we would have a lot more reporters currently working in the last 3 years had the test been in person. Thank you.
Moderator, just a clarification, I mute the lines after they hit the 3-minute limit. But Madam Chair, no further requests. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you, moderator.
Thanks.
With that, we will move to our next agenda item, number 5, legislation. Ms. Fenner, would you present this agenda item for us? Oh, and seeing a hand up from Ms. Sunkeys.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make 2 comments in regard to the public comment. One, Ms. Gwaltney, Priscilla, I'm glad you're here because you got the message directly and you're going to be one of the people teaching the class. And if you could reiterate or iterate to the attendees, schedule early, that would be great. And then, and perhaps with the anecdote of what's happening, what has happened in past tests, if you wait till the last minute, remember it takes 72 hours just to schedule a proctor. And then the other issue, Tara O'Connor, I'm so glad you're here. And please, please, please do not let all the horror stories you've heard deter you in taking the CSR when you do, and schedule early. So if there's a true issue schedule early. So, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkeys. With that, Ms. Fenner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Tugade. Beginning on page 41 of the board agenda packet, you'll find a list of the bills that we're tracking in the current legislative cycle. We are kind of in between the first and second year of our 2-year cycle. I flagged a couple just to point out to the board. The first bill was already discussed in the DCA update, SB 544, authored by Senator Laird. That was chaptered and it becomes law January 1st and provides updates to the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. This will have a financial impact on the board as our meetings will move back to in-person. If nobody has, since you can have questions on the law if you want, but we've kind of done a summary for you on page 42 that highlights some of the major changes. If there aren't any questions on that specific bill, I will move on to SB 662 by Senator Rubio. This bill includes language that requires the board to submit a report to the legislature regarding whether or not our exam is required, that is required for licensure in order to establish competency, or is it actually a barrier to licensure? Bill also expands the ability of courts to use electronic recording in court. And the bill has until the end of January to move through the Senate in order to move to the Assembly side. Does anybody have any questions on the bill, or does the board want to discuss? It is possible if you want to take a position, we can. Although the burden is on the senator's office now at this point to move it through the Senate in order for it to stay alive.
Ms. Brewer?
Thank you. And since the senator needs to move it forward, take a positive step towards that, would it be appropriate to wait to take a position on the bill until we know whether it's actually going to be put forward?
If I may provide some context, given the timeline, I would actually say that it would be prudent if we are intending to take that position today, because we will likely not have time prior to the bill moving, if it is. So that would be my recommendation. Yes, Ms. Brewer.
Thank you. Well, I know that the board has already done a lot of the things that Senator Rubio has asked for. So I'd like to see us take a position against it, but I'd be interested in hearing what the other board members think. And I wouldn't want to, I know that we need to reach out to the author's office, and I don't want to do anything that would be, that would work against that. That would not be productive because it, and especially with our statistics improving. You know, I mean, this really casts a different light on a lot of this, these different bills that are coming up that are looking at, are we doing this? Are we doing that? Is there even the Judicial Council, you know, the pressure for more licensees, and is the exam really necessary, and all those kinds of things? They're really cast in a different light if you look at the exam statistics and the improvement. Hopefully we've reached our nadir, and they're gonna be continue improving, and we're gonna have more and more licensees. So that's my input on this.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Mr. Dodgenham.
I would kind of like to follow up on and support what Ms. Brewer is saying. I did have a point of clarification for the board members that have been on a bit longer. As I understand it, our take right now is, while we are strongly in favor of the voice recording that we've seen an increase in, we are very concerned about just simply electronic recording apparatus. And this bill, although it's still in the early stage, seems to provide a backdoor to that. If I am correct in that we are opposed to unregulated electronic device recording, then I support Ms. Brewer and I want to see if the other board members do as well, and then putting our concern, or expressing our concern more formally about this legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Dodgenham. And to speak to that, I'll ask Ms. Sunkees and Ms. Fenner to fill in the gaps, but my understanding from my time on the board is that the board has had a historic policy of opposing any efforts towards electronic recording, and also recognizes that we have taken many efforts at looking at reciprocity, at different ways to reduce barriers to licensure, looking at our own exam and that process, and have not been able to find as of yet a comparable solution to reduce that barrier. And so, without compromising on consumer protection, our ultimate charge here at the board. And so, in line with your thinking, Mr. Dodgenham. Ms. Sunkees?
Yeah, I first, thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to say this doesn't give a backdoor opening to electronic recording. It gives a front door. Yes, we've been historically opposed to it, and I would say we should remain opposed to it, and we're doing, in addition to our testing statistics are increasing, I would say markedly, and coupled with the fact that the schools are at capacity, and there are wait lists at many schools, I'm told. And we are in the process of working on reciprocity, looking at our own test. I mean, there are things that have not been foreclosed. We are actually currently working on. So I think that it's appropriate to continue to oppose electronic recording in the courts.
Thank you, Ms. Sunkeys. Mr. Dodgenham, did you have your question?
Yeah, well, so not sure what exactly to do, but maybe it's too early, but I then therefore, based on what we've heard so far, I propose that we ask the staff to draft a letter or a note of opposition to this current legislation.
So I believe the motion, Ms. Fenner, are you going to, Seven, yes?
Probably just too soon, but that's right.
No. I think we'll just get some help on the drafting of the motion. But I believe it's take up a policy of opposition, and then the staff can then draft the letter. But Ms. Fenner.
I did just want to respond to your question quickly on the historical position of the board. So in the past, they have looked at electronic recording as an inferior way and a dicey way to make a record for the consumer. And while we understand that the courts are trying to have a record of some sort, there are a lot of concerns that past boards have had as far as whether it's a complete, if people are talking on top of each other, a live court reporter can stop that and guarantee that the litigant is getting a record. If it is an electronic recording, even if they are the voices are recorded on separate tracks, it's often garbled and difficult or impossible for the litigant to receive any type of record. And past board discussions has debated whether an okay record or a partial record is sufficient for a litigant. If they think that they are being recorded, but there are problems with the recording, nobody knows, nobody can stop at the time and address it and fix it. Also, there were privacy concerns on if multiple proceedings are heard, as sometimes happens in motions or calendar proceedings. How are they going to get only their matter and not the entire morning recording? And will there be privacy issues that are inadvertently released? So those were some of the concerns I just wanted to share with the current board.
Thank you so much, Ms. Fenner. With that, Mr. Dodgenham, we'll take your motion. If you don't mind me wordsmithing,
please.
The motion will be for the board to take an opposed position against SB 662, and then direct the staff to draft a letter of opposition, or as appropriate, I believe. And before we do that, though, Ms. Brewer.
I just wanted to second the motion.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Dodgenham, is that, are you?
Yes.
So moved?
So moved. Please,
Perfect.
yes, I know. Thank you.
Wonderful. With that, Ms. Bruning, would you take the roll call?
Can we call for public comment, please?
Absolutely.
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in and would like to participate, click the question mark inside a square, type comment, send it to all panelists. If you're calling in, press *3 from your phone to raise your virtual hand. Madam Chair, at this point, I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you, moderator. With that, I will pass it to Ms. Bruning. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Brewer?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Dodgenham?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Manayan?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Sunkeys?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Gade?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Bruning. Ms. Fenner, I will give it back to you to close out the legislation conversation.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that SB 802 by Senator Roth looks like it's not moving, but it's just like for the board because it will, if it does pass, it will affect the board's enforcement and application processes. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Seeing none, that concludes my report on legislation. I would recommend that we take a 15-minute break for staff right now, if that is the pleasure of the board.
Thank you, Ms. Swenner. So 15 minutes, so we will be back at 11:45. Thank you all. Great, then with that, I don't believe I took public comment after our final agenda, our final legislative item for agenda item 5. Ms. Joffrey, do I need to do one last public comment on that?
I thought we did public comment on legislation and on the DCA update at the same time.
Great.
I thought it was the DCA update and EO report. But either way, it's always a good time for public comment. So of course we can open it up again.
Sounds good.
This is the moderator. The Q&A is now open. The instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in and would like to participate, click that question mark inside of the square, type comments, send it to all panelists. If you are calling in, *3 from your phone to raise your virtual hand. Madam Chair, there are no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you.
With that, we will move to agenda item 6, regulations. Our regulations manager, Ms. Betsy Figuera, will update us on the status of the voice writer curriculum regulations package. Ms. Figuera?
Betsy, are you able to unmute yourself, or do you need instructions on that? We can put those up.
I believe Betsy is in the process of unmuting.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. The board currently has 2 rulemaking packages in process. I'll briefly update the information that's included on page 43 of the board packet for each of the packages. Agenda item 6.1 relates to voice writers, and it's still under review by the Office of Administrative Law, OAL, which has until December 18th to complete their review. The fiscal and economic analyses documents were approved by the Department of Finance on December 8th and submitted to OAL on the same day. We've been in communication with the OAL reviewing attorney and anticipate action by the end of the week. If OAL approves the voice writers rulemaking package, the regulatory changes will become effective on April 1st, 2024. Agenda item 6.2 relates to examination results and transcript format. The package is currently under review by the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. Once approved, it will be submitted to OAL for publication of the notice of proposed regulatory action and start of the 45-day comment period. We have not yet scheduled a hearing for this rulemaking, but if a request is made for one in accordance with the notice, we will schedule a hearing. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period, we will continue the processing of this rulemaking through the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Department of Finance, and OAL, which could take approximately another 4 to 7 months before the package is approved and the changes become effective. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Seeing none from the board, I will note that agenda item 6.1 is informational only, and there will be public comment available once the package is filed with the Office of Administrative Law. But we will take public comment on the status of that item, or public comment on agenda item 6.2.
Just for clarification, the voice writers package on 6.1 is currently under review at OAL.
That's correct.
Thank you, Ms. Dunning.
Chair Tagati, would you like to take public comment on 6.1 at this time?
Yes, if we can take public comment on the status of 6.1 and on 6.2 as well. We'll look to Ms. Joffrey. That's great. Great. Yes. Thank you.
Fine. That's fine.
Instructions are on the screen for your reference. If you're logged in, click that question mark inside the square, typically bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. Type comment, send it to all panelists. If you're calling in from a phone, *3 to raise your virtual hand. Madam Chair, no requests at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you. With that, we will move on to the next agenda item, number 7, sunset review. We'll pass it to Yvonne again.
Thank you, Chair Tugade. I will just announce its final review time, ladies and gentlemen. So what you have before you is a final draft. I know that you've had a chance to go through it. I will take all changes that you'd like to make before we submit it. When we're done with the amendments, we will need a motion to direct staff to make the amendments and offer it to the legislature by January 4th, 2024, which is our deadline.
Ms. Brewer.
Thank you, Chair Tagade. So I went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and I do have a lot of changes. I did make kind of, sorry, I see smiles. Yes, I know, I'm the fussy one. I do have an errata sheet that I can provide to staff and fellow board members, if that's appropriate afterwards. I don't want to take up an excessive amount of time if other people have comments first, but if not, I do have comments all the way through the document. So advise whether you want me to go ahead right now or wait.
Let's just go through it. And if anybody has something on the same page, we can just interrupt or go back. We'll do like we did last time. So page 1, page 2, just whatever the first page you have.
Okay, so page 1 at the very bottom of the page, the second line from the bottom, there should be a comma after settings before which. It's a non-restrictive clause.
Do you see it?
Second line from the bottom, the final 4 words, settings, comma, which frequently involve. And I'll just continue ahead. Please interrupt me, anyone, if you want to say something or have me stop. Okay, page 46, the top paragraph, the second from the bottom line, comma, after settings, community in a variety of settings, comma, from the classroom to sporting events. Page 47. I tried, believe it or not, I know I'm fussy, but I tried to be judicious in the things that I changed. Okay, page 47, second paragraph, the first and second lines. Right after $9.5 million, I would like to see added on behalf of indigent litigants, 2 licensed reporters. Otherwise, it makes it sound like, you know, the reporters are the beneficiaries when actually it's the litigants who are. So it should read $9.5 million on behalf of indigent litigants, 2 licensed reporters.
Ms. Brewer, before we move forward from there, why don't we pause and see if Mr. Dodgenham and Ms. Unkes have anything on those pages?
Do not. Sorry, I'll remove mine was for earlier.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Sorry about that. I didn't realize it was on.
Ms. Brewer, thank you.
Okay, so the next sentence, by law, let me just, okay, by law, the TRF may fund, I think should probably say the TRF may be funded, or the board may fund the TRF up to $300,000, etc.
Can you repeat the second one more time for me, Laura?
I'll start with the start of the sentence at the end of that first line of paragraph 2. By law, comma, the TRF may be funded up to $300,000.
Thank you.
Yes. And I'm moving on to page 52 if anybody has something in the interim. So page 52 under my name, I just on the third line, I'd like to delete the comma after reporter and insert the word and, A-N-D. And I'm moving on to page 54, so I'll pause for a moment. Oh, and actually, I'm sorry, Ms. Fenner, you had asked me to reference the page number of the actual sunset review rather than the packet. So it's page 10 of 52. The first line, I have a note here. Do we need to update this to show that Denise Tugade is the chair as of September 1, 2023 meeting?
Great catch.
Yeah. And then going down to the 5th paragraph, third line. Okay, third line down, it starts protected, whether they hire a registered firm. That should be when, I believe. Protected when they hire a registered firm. And then I would delete regardless of. So it should say protected whether they hire a registered firm, whether or not it is owned by a licensee. Or if you prefer the phraseology, whether it is owned by a licensee or not. And And then my next note is on page 57. Oh, and okay, so page 57, table 3, close to the bottom of the page. That last column, I had a note to myself. It took me a long time to review this, and so typical for me with my ADD tendencies that I don't always remember what my notes relate to, but I have a note here for the final columns, the FY 22-23, double checking to see that these columns are up to date with our final numbers. So that was just a cautionary note to check. And then moving to page 58, 14 of 52. And the third full paragraph, starting in 1981. Okay, so if you go to the second full sentence, I would like to see that say, to replace by law, a maximum of 300,000 of the board's total revenue must go to the TRF. Beginning July 1, transfers may be made in increments of 100,000. Instead, I would like to replace that with, and please correct me if this is not a good rephrasing, but I believe it is a little clearer. By law, the board funds the TRF in $100,000 increments, comma, up to a maximum of $300,000 per year.